Welcome back to Never Did It. I'm Jake Ziegler, and I'm here with Brad Garoon. On Never Did It, we look back at the last 100 plus years of movie history in an effort to fill in some of our own movie blind spots. Today we're covering the year 1951 with a couple of just bleak movies. This one's not going to be fun. We didn't cut the bleakness with a comedy on the other half of this. We've just got two solid dramas here we're going to talk about. We've got Ace in the Hole, Billy Wilder's film, and then George Stevens' A Place in the Sun. What do you want to talk about first?
Let's talk about Ace in the Hole, because I watched it more time ago and I don't want to lose my thoughts on it.
Sure, and I just watched it last night, so perfect.
And I have no idea what you thought of it because you have not put it on Letterboxd yet.
I have not yet, but I have it up here, so I'm going to do it as soon as we're done.
Okay, cool. So Ace in the Hole, like you said, was directed by Billy Wilder. It was based on two different true stories. Anyway, it stars Kirk Douglas as a newspaperman, Jan Sterling as, well, we'll get into it, what Jan Sterling and Robert Arthur and Ray Teal, who we talked about last week, what they're all up to here. But so yeah, Douglas is a newspaperman who has clearly been down on his luck, and he's fast talking and he's kind of a punk. And he comes into, was it Albuquerque? He's like, I'm from the big city. I'll make you so much money at this paper. And he basically fast talks his way into a newspaper job. And then we flash forward to a year later and he hates it there. And he's so bored. Basically ruined his life by going to this place. And it's a dry work environment. And I don't just mean in sense of humor, like you are not allowed to drink on this job. If Mad Men taught us anything, it's that in 1952 people were actually Mad Men's more in the 60s, but we know that people were drinking on the job. Not in this place. This editor wants none of that. It's a real in God we trust kind of place.
Well, he wears suspenders and a belt because he's always prepared in case anything happens. That's the kind of guy this guy is.
He's a real Boy Scout. Douglas gets sent to a small town to go cover the Rattlesnake Festival. And on his way there, he and his photographer come across like basically a side of the road rest stop area where they sell Native American tchotchkes, hamburgers, and a guy is trapped in a mine. So Douglas immediately just infiltrates these people's lives to make the biggest, most sensationalized story out of it that he can drag out for as long as he can, because he sees this as his ticket back to the big city, back to being a big time newspaper man at one of the major papers in Philadelphia or Pittsburgh or New York City.
He really wants to go to New York, yeah.
Yeah. He gets involved in the life of the ne'er-do-well wife of the man trapped in the mine.
Hey, how often does she do well?
Ne'er,
obviously.
And he gets in bed with the crooked sheriff of the town. He convinces the spineless miner, the guy who runs the mining system, to do the drill his way, not the most efficient way, so they can drag it out. You'll never, ever see Douglas like this. He's so slimy and bad.
I mean, just cruel. I mean, he's awful. I didn't know much about this movie before seeing it, other than its reputation as being very good. But, with Billy Wilder, I tend to think more of Some Like It Hot or The Apartment. I mean, The Apartment's sad, but I mean, it's, got a lighter, the main character is not an asshole. Jack Lemmon, you root for him, but like Kirk Douglas in this movie, I mean, there's nothing redeeming about him in this movie. And I was not prepared for the movie to be this serious and dark. And that's not a criticism. It's just kind of took me off guard.
Well, what did you think of it?
Thought it was great. I mean, I really, really liked it. I'm going to give it 4.5 stars because it surprised me so much just to see him just like slowly unraveling, and the way he treated the Jan Sterling character. I'm just like, wow, like you just don't see it. I was not expecting him to just be so abusive towards her and just to be generally so disreputable in every regard. I mean, it was a hard one to watch when he's just letting this guy suffer for his own gain. Yeah, it's brutal in a lot of ways.
It's interesting that he did this and Sunset Boulevard back to back because they're very similar protagonists.
Mm-hmm.
The only difference is Sunset Boulevard lets you know right at the beginning of the movie, this guy's dead already.
Yeah.
And this one, you're like, is he going to get away with it? What's going on?
Mm-hmm.
To Wilder's credit and to the credit of the entire cast, you actually want him to get away with it because there's another man's life at stake.
Yeah.
And there's a whole town at stake, really. I'm glad you liked it. It obviously reminded me a lot of Nightcrawler. I feel like Nightcrawler pulls from this a ton.
Yep.
I think that the thing that the movie does well is, you mentioned he's really abusive to the Jan Sterling character, but the way that Wilder tricks the audience is by making the Jan Sterling character despicable.
Yeah, because she wants to get in on this scheme with him because now all of a sudden the stand that she's running is making a bunch of money because people are coming out to see the guy in the mine, and it turns into a big carnival, as the film was once called.
Which is crazy. I mean, but also carnival is related to just like the media circus around everything that's going on. You know, all the newspaper men fly in, and
well, there's a literal Ferris wheel there, so I mean, it is kind of a carnival. Like,
right,
I mean, there's people like selling food and selling wares. I think it turns into a whole big media circus. Yeah,
right. The idea is that Leo Minosa, the man trapped in the well, who's played by Richard Benedict very well, who's also like not a great guy. His wife wants to get away because he's a miner. He's not actually, I don't even think he's a miner. I think he's a scavenger. He's
been stealing artifacts, from there. And that's why he thinks the Indians have gotten, of course, right when I'm watching it too, is when my wife, happens to come out from her room. It's like, oh, come on.
Well, I mean, it's not like these are good people. These are bad guys we actually had an interesting commenter on one of our videos recently. It was about the Iger sanction.
Mm-hmm.
And he was talking about why he was unaffected by all the homophobia and misogyny in the Iger sanction. And he was like, none of the characters who are homophobic are good. And I was like, well, I mean, Clint Eastwood's character is kind of homophobic. I didn't say that, but it is a fact. Right. But he's right in that the homophobia, the calling the dog the F slur, like that's done by an evil character. Mm-hmm. And it's also meant to make you feel uncomfortable. And that's all true. Yeah. And I think that's true in Ace in the Hole also, where all these people who are selling these native artifacts, some of which are real and some of which are certainly fake, they're losers. They're at least losers like Leo's parents, or they're bad like Leo's wife and probably Leo. So he's stuck there. But the reason there's this whole carnival is the assumption is that he's getting out and he's going to be saved.
Yeah.
So that's why you can have this stuff happen. Wow, we have to be really careful because there's not that much more we can say without spoiling, because the ending is 100% spoilable, and really the whole third act is pretty spoilable.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, there's things I gasped out loud at one point where I didn't see something coming that happened, but it doesn't feel, it certainly is not like surprise for the sake of surprise or anything like that. I mean, everything gets built really well, everything is established very well where it all makes sense. It's really interesting. Is it like, the Leo character, he's not a particularly great guy, but you still feel for him because, like, okay, he doesn't deserve this.
No,
maybe he's not the world's best husband, or he's not, he's maybe stealing artifacts that he shouldn't steal, but like he doesn't deserve to be stuck in a mine, where he can't move and can't get out just to revitalize this dick's career. I mean, you really feel for him, and that's a credit, I think, to the screenplay to not make him like a more sympathetic character. And then the town, kind of rallies around him too, which is, again, they probably don't like him that much, but it just turns into a whole spectacle.
It's pretty fascinating. Billy Wilder gave you a movie where no one is good and dares you to care about them, and then you do. And that really pissed people off in 1952. This movie was slammed when it came out. They were like, the media is not like this. Democracy is powerful force that keeps the media in check, and vice versa. And watching it, I think I watched it for the first time in 2022 on my birthday.
Mm-hmm.
It was the day after my wife's cat died. Which was awful. When I fired this up recently, I'm like, Annie, come watch this with me. She goes, oh, this is the movie you watched the day Susie died? I'm like, no. It's the movie I watched on my birthday. The following day, we got a camper van in Brooklyn. It was like a gimmicky thing. It was nice. And there's like a jacuzzi outside of it.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I remember at the time being like, whoa, why wouldn't people like this? And they were furious that it attacked the third and fourth pillar of American society.
Mm-hmm. Pretty accurate.
Yeah, well, now I was like, Jesus. I mean, I long for a time like this.
Yeah.
For that reason, nominated for 0 Academy Awards. Oh, really?
One. Yep, it was nominated for the Screenplay Award. Their Screenplay Awards were weird back then. I don't always understand it there, but this was nominated for Best Writing, Story, and Screenplay, whatever that is, but it lost to An American in Paris.
As opposed to what? What was the other Screenplay Award? Were they still doing like the treatment awards back then?
I think the treatment one had gone away. Best Writing, parenthesis story and screenplay, and then best writing, parenthesis screenplay, and then best writing, parenthesis motion picture story.
Yikes.
That just sounds like a mess to try and sort out.
So for those of you who are reasonably annoyed when movies now can't decide whether they're adapted or original, think about how bad it used to be.
Mm-hmm.
Also, like, what is the freaking difference? Like, to me, do a screenplay. I guess you don't give out as many awards then, is the problem. A screenplay is a screenplay. Everything's adapted from something, even if there's very little that's like wholly original.
We're not all Spike Jonze,
Well, Spike Jonze also made Where the Wild Things Are, so.
Right, and adaptation was adapted, but he also wrote 2 of the more original movies. But here's when I click on the links here, best writing, story, and screenplay, that links to original screenplay by today's standards. Best writing parenthesis screenplay links to adapted screenplay, so that makes sense. And then motion picture story, I guess that is like the treatment one still, which had a couple more years after this, and then it was done.
When the Hollywood system dies, that dies.
Yeah. Yep.
Sorry, when the Hollywood studio system dies, I mean.
There we go.
And then you recommended for me A Place in the Sun.
This is one I hadn't seen since college. I mentioned a couple weeks ago, Professor Steve Lipkin, who is for sure not listening, but I remember studying...
We're going to keep doing this until he hears the show.
Going over this movie with him. So, I mean, it's been over 20 years since I'd seen this. So, essentially, this was new for me as well. I don't have like a strong connection or memories of this movie, but, you know, you look at it, it's George Stevens, who I know we haven't done on the podcast at all, and he was a reasonably big director during his time. And then you've got Montgomery Clift and Shelley Winters and Elizabeth Taylor, big cast and big Oscar movie that year, too. We'll talk about that, its nominations in a little bit, but those were kind of the reasons I picked it. I really didn't remember a whole lot about it. And then when I was watching the opening credits, and you can see, you know, based on the novel and like an American tragedy or something, like, okay, now it's starting to come back. And boy, it sure is tragic.
I was kind of surprised because the part that I assumed was going to be the tragedy referred to happened in the second act. And I thought that was going to be near the end. You know what this reminded me a lot of? It reminded me a lot of Sunrise, A Song of Two Humans. It's a pretty similar plot. I mean, the motivations of the characters are quite different, but it's got a similar outline.
Yeah.
So tell us what it's about.
So this stars Montgomery Clift, who we talked about in a movie he wasn't in or involved in last week, just briefly. But
we also talked about him when we did our From Here to Eternity episode.
Yep, that as well. And this movie was a couple years before From Here to Eternity. But Montgomery Clift is the lead here, and he plays a gentleman named George Eastman, who has wealthy relatives who he goes to see and get a job from. You know, he's like working at a factory or something. He's going to get like an entry-level job at this factory just because he needs work.
They're packaging bikinis.
Yes, they're packaging bikinis and things. Is that it? Or I thought there was like other...
That's all he does. I mean, I think that the company does more, but all he does is he's on the assembly line putting bikini boxes on like in a crate.
Right. Pretty simple work, but while he's there, he meets a woman named Alice Tripp, who is played by Shelley Winters, who it's always weird for me to see her in older movies because I grew up with her as the grandma on Roseanne. So yeah, I was...
I didn't know that. I grew up with her. It was also as an old lady, but it was in Pete's Dragon. Like I was like, oh yeah, she's from Pete's Dragon, which you hate.
True. Yep. Mm-hmm. And she's in a bunch. I mean, she's in Lolita. She's in The Night of the Hunter. I've
never seen that. The Night of the Hunter is a crazy. Never did it for me.
Yeah, me too. I just know she's in it, but yeah, I actually haven't seen it either. You know, yeah, she's certainly got a distinguished film career in addition to being Roseanne's grandma. And you know, she's kind of plain, I guess would be the word. You know, just kind of just a little quiet girl who works in the factory, and you know, she and George get close and start dating. But there's a rule at the factory that coworkers can't date, so they have to keep that quiet. In the meantime, he has visited his rich relative's house, and he meets a woman named Angela Vickers. What a great name. She, of course, is played by Elizabeth Taylor, who is just unspeakably gorgeous, and he falls in love with her immediately, so he wants to be with her, but he also, I don't know that he likes Alice. I think maybe he does at first.
I think he's just so horny when he gets to town. Because that first date between George and Alice, he is so aggressive. Like he's a quiet guy. He's charming. His whole thing is that he's got a mysterious charm. Mm-hmm. But he is always trying to get closer to Alice and always like pushing her up against walls and gently, not like aggressively. Mm-hmm. But I'm like, this guy wants to bone so bad. I've never seen a hornier person on a date in a movie.
That's probably true. Yeah. But that's where the movie goes. This is kind of his internal battle between wanting to go and be with Angela and then also wanting to be with Alice and not being able to tell anybody about it. And also Angela's parents don't approve of him, so he's got that barrier there. But he's literally seeing both of them at the same time, which in the age of no social media was probably easier for someone like him to pull off. But
totally. But I kept thinking he was going to get caught. At every turn, I'm like, you're in the same town.
I know, right?
Get caught.
But that's kind of the setup to the movie. And then, like I said, it's called An American Tragedy. So there's no happily ever after here.
The important part, and we can say this without spoiling too much, is that George gets Angela pregnant, or gets Allison pregnant. Now he's really tied to her. And at the same time, his uncle wants to promote him and bring him into that social circle more. Mm. And how can he do that if he's knocked up a woman he's not even supposed to be dating?
While also dating Angela at the same time.
Which would be great for his life because she's in that social social scene. And, you know, there's this cool sub movie happening, this side movie that wants to be happening but isn't happening, and all by design. Angela's parents don't really accept George. And that, like, it's funny that that's going on because it so doesn't matter compared to the magnitude of everything else that's happening. But George has to keep playing it like it does matter because that's still the life he wants.
Right. What's interesting about the Angela character, too, is that she's not a bad person.
I bumped up against that a little bit. I'm like, why is she nice? And why does she love him?
Well, that, I mean, yeah, there's really not a good explanation for that. I've got nothing for that. But I did like that she wasn't like a rude, prissy, you know, socialite type. Like, she was just a regular nice person who just liked being with George, who, I think I said before, Montgomery Clift in the 1950s is like distractingly handsome. I mean,
so we talked about this in the opening scene of the movie. He's hitchhiking, and then it does a quick close-up on his face, and the music swells in such a way that even if you don't find him attractive, you're like, well, you're supposed to.
Yeah. Yeah, it was like the Wiz in Seinfeld, you know, when Elaine looks at the Wiz and it plays like that music little like, yeah, I was already in the bag for that, so I was like, yeah, he's very handsome.
Yeah, great looking guy. Terrible posture. He's like hands in his pocket, hunched over the whole movie, which is very appropriate for his character, who's insecure about his place in the world. His parents were like religious nuts, kind of.
Yeah, and he didn't do well with that. Yeah.
Yeah, his dad seems to have been some kind of preacher. His mom followed that. His mom still works in a halfway home, basically. I think she helps like troubled men. You see, if you've seen The Brutalist, like the kind of place where Adrian Brody goes in the beginning of the movie, where you worship in exchange for a place to stay at night. I think that's where she's working. And she wants George to do that kind of work. He wants to get ahead in the go-go. I also didn't quite understand where is this Los Angeles?
That's a good question.
I feel like it was definitely filmed in California.
It's filmed in several locations, including Lake Tahoe, Echo Lake.
Yeah, so California. Beautiful landscapes everywhere. I have to say, because this was in my review on Letterboxd, I've never seen so many crossfades and so many slow crossfades in a movie. What an interesting style. I was thinking about Star Wars as I was watching it, because George Lucas liked to use quick wipes as transitions in movies. And that came from Kurosawa, who liked to use quick wipes. Like, the reason that you have all those wipes in A New Hope is because they were in The Hidden Fortress. And these are the slowest transitions from one scene to the next you'll ever see. My interpretation of it was that it's to represent George being stuck between these two lives. But it gets real distracting after a while. I'm like, wait, which scene are they going to and which one are they coming from? But cool stuff, very beautifully made. And the reason so I'll say this is a weepy as much as anything ever was. And the reason and it's very earnest. And the reason I was able to deal with it was, you cannot like George. He's such a weenie. And yet I was so invested in what happens to him.
Well, because again, much like we talked about with Ace in the Hole, what happens to George is going to have a huge effect on not only himself, but on Angela and Alice as well. So, and they don't deserve the bad things that are going to happen because of him. So I think that's what helps the investment in that George character, because yeah, you kind of want him to have it figured out where it can be good for all three of them, but that's not going to be the case.
Right. This movie also deals with abortion, and there's this fascinating scene where Angela goes to a doctor because she wants him to give her an abortion. Was Shelley Winters nominated for an Academy Award for this?
She was nominated for actually lead. I assumed it was supporting actress, but she was actually nominated for lead actress. Yeah.
Okay. For that scene alone, she deserves it, because she goes in saying, my husband bailed on me. And so he's like, so go tell your family. And she has to, like, slowly but surely give more and more of the truth. And then the scene ends and you find out she was even lying about her secret truth, which is great script there. Like, what an amazing bit of writing. This movie was almost censored because they didn't want that scene in there. I was shocked that there was like a full on, like, they never say the word abortion. They never say that out loud. And the doctor ultimately won't give her one. He says, like, if you're trying to come here because of what I think, then forget it. Yeah, I was pretty blown away by it, just because it was 1952 and I didn't expect it. We've seen stuff like this in other movies, which also they use euphemisms, but this was just like very direct. So I was surprised to see it, and I'm not surprised to learn that it almost got the movie shit canned.
Right. Yeah, that totally makes sense in every way.
We know that Shelley Winters got her best lead actress, which I don't know.
So I think she's kind of a supporting character. Yeah. But, again, the nomination certainly deserved either way. But yeah, I probably would have had her in the supporting. But also Montgomery Clift was nominated for this as well. He lost to Humphrey Bogart in The African Queen. Makes sense. Shelley Winters lost to Vivien Leigh in Streetcar Named Desire. So,
I think this is a better movie than Streetcar.
Streetcar's a big never did it for me, actually.
I like Streetcar. It's going to be on. I have a top 5 for this year. It's going to be in there, but I like this better.
I've seen Streetcar Named Marge, and that's a great episode. So it lost the two acting awards, but it won Best Cinematography Black and White, Best Costume Design Black and White. George Stevens won Best Director, won Best Film Editing, won Best Dramatic or Comedy Score. It won the Best Screenplay Award, and it was nominated for Best Picture and lost. So it overall went 6 of 9, which is really good.
I have two questions. What did it lose Best Picture to?
American in Paris.
Which is also not as good as this movie.
Right, yeah. I mean, I like An American in Paris, but yeah, it wouldn't be my Best Picture, the winner that year at all.
Yeah, hell of a beautiful movie. I mean, great. It's color. It looks amazing. The dance scenes are crazy, but long and kind of boring. A comment and then one more question. My comment is Best Editing for those cross wipes.
Yeah.
And then you said Best Sound in Drama or Comedy?
No, Best Score for Drama or Comedy.
Oh, as in not musical.
Yes. Yep.
Got it. Because there were still a lot of musicals then, including the Best Picture.
Yep, exactly. That's why, yeah, they used to, it's funny, yeah, the score award used to be, yeah, Best Dramatic or Comedy Score. And then I think they amended it later on to Best Comedy or Musical Score. And then the drama scores had their own.
You got to do what are there less of and put them together.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Do you want to go through our top fives of this year? Do you have?
Yeah. Let's see if I have. I actually, again, I only have 4 from 1951, but I can certainly do that.
Yeah, I mistakenly said 1952 before, but 1951.
Yeah, this is 51. So I have as my number 4, I have the aforementioned American in Paris. Yeah, it's a delightful musical. It's a lot of fun. I think I have it at 4 stars. So I mean, I really do enjoy it, but that's my number 4. My number 3 is Disney's Alice in Wonderland, which I quite enjoy. Everybody knows about that one. And then my number 1 and 2 are A Place in the Sun and Ace in the Hole, and I'm not quite sure how to rank them yet. I think I'd go Place in the Sun at number 1 and Ace in the Hole at number 2, but I don't know, ask me tomorrow and it might be different.
Okay, fair enough. I have 2 honorable mentions. They are The Day the Earth Stood Still, which is a great sci-fi movie directed by Robert Wise, who made West Side Story and The Sound of Music and Star Trek. I mean, this guy made like a lot of awesome movies, and The Day the Earth Stood Still is very cool. Not the Keanu Reeves version. I haven't seen it.
I remember seeing it when it came out. It was not so good.
Oh, fair enough. And then my other honorable mention is An American in Paris, which was directed by Vincente Minnelli, who we talked about recently. Why? I think he directed Goodbye Charlie. Oh yeah, Goodbye Charlie, because he directed another movie that I have in a top 5 because Walter Matthau was in it. And then my number 5 is A Streetcar Named Desire, directed by Elia Kazan, his most famous movie, and the reason that Orson Welles could not totally crap on him, because he respected what he did in this film.
Respect him.
Obviously stars Marlon Brando in, I think, maybe not as breakout. Did On the Waterfront come out before this?
On the Waterfront was a little bit after. So this, I think, actually was like he'd been in movies before, but like this was, I think, was like his star turn.
Yeah. And he looks incredible in this movie, and he plays a very troubled guy. And as you mentioned, Vivien Leigh is Blanche Dubois, who is just always reliant on the kindness of strangers. And Kim Hunter, who we just talked about because she was in A Matter of Life and Death. She plays Stella. And then my number 4 is A Place in the Sun, which I like very much. And my number 3 is Strangers on a Train, which is one of the best Alfred Hitchcock movies. Incredible. You haven't seen it, or it came out in 52 in the States?
I have not seen it, actually.
Right, because it's an American movie. Incredible. And Hitchcock's daughter is in that one in a small, very weird role.
Yeah, my wife has a list of Hitchcock movies we're trying to get to because we'd like to watch more, but I mean,
he is the most decorated actor in terms of Never Did It, so...
That's right, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Or at least the most reviewed. My number 2 is Alice in Wonderland. You said everyone knows it. It's true, but I just have to say, I think that if Alice in Wonderland, the story it's based on, and the Disney movie, if either of them had an ending, it might be the best Disney animated movie ever. I'm pretty sure I have it ranked number 2. And the only thing missing for me is that she gets in trouble, and then the resolution is she wakes up.
Yeah.
So that's a bit of a drag. But aside from that, it's like trippy. It's revisit Alice in Wonderland from 1951. It's incredible.
Yeah, don't watch the Johnny Depp thing, but yeah, the animated one is real good.
Although there is a really cool stop motion animated version that's terrifying, just called Alice, which is well worth checking out. And then my number 1 is Ace in the Hole. Billy Wilder is like almost always going to be number 1 in a year where he had a movie come out, as long as that movie's not Buddy Buddy. So I think Buddy Buddy's like not as bad as Quentin Tarantino says. Oh, well, it is probably Billy Wilder's worst movie. Although I still have like 10 more Billy Wilder movies to watch. Anyway, that'll do it for 1951. Oh, next week is our finale. So we're going to do a double episode. So it's going to be a long one because we've got 4 movies to talk about. We are coming back with 2024. There will be no best of at the end of that episode because it's a double episode. We are each recommending 2 movies for the other. So recent. And then the following week we'll be back with I guess like a reunion episode, but it's just a reunion of the 2 of us, which we'll talk about our favorite movies of 2024 and our favorite movies of the first season of Never Did It. So please join us then.